Hey guys, how's it going? December 10th, 2018, just 7:15 p.m. Actually, I had lots of free time tonight. I was watching some video of Mariah's Pass, of all things. Yeah, I just got into settling, and there wasn't much on YouTube that I was interested in, and did a little bit of YouTube searching, and wow. But before that, there was some other interesting stuff that took place. Um, Very good news, actually. Let me just see here. And Chris is on. So we're on the Southwest server. We're going to be running a mainline train tonight. There we go. Just going to say hello. And I'm going to take you over to Train Sim and show you basically what was posted. And there's been some very good he replied to one of my threads that had really took a life of its own. And the title of the thread I pushed was, "Who is looking forward to Run8 version 3? What are you looking for? Make or break?" And the whole idea was just a thought project, just to see where everybody's frame of mind was, and thinking that if version 3 didn't have certain things, that the difference between version 2 and version 3 and people hanging on to 2, there are people that still hang on to 1 and don't go to 2. But it's very few, from what I understand, was going to be pretty big. So I thought HOTS was. Hold on a second. Just curious to see what's going on here. As far as I know, I'm running a mainline tonight, but I don't know either. Okay, well, that's fine. So, anyways, so I posted this. I think I talked about it a little bit a while ago, that I felt that there was going to be a change, and there's a lot of people, you know, what people would like, and there's Hans. Speaking of Hans, an AI hump control. I like, and actually his idea, I was thinking the same thing myself, but I was actually thinking that, and possibly AI would be really nice, though I honestly didn't expect it. And I said I liked the idea of the AI hump, and so we started talking about it, and a lot of us are very content with version 2. Ezra is one of them. So yeah, there was the Indeed part, because this is where it got good. I'll show you where that took place. I'm talking about different routes, and then Ezra was talking about dynamic weather. It won't be enough. I said it wouldn't be enough for me to jump into version 3, but I liked it. So all these things, even the swing bridges, and then there was a reply, and I was like, oh. And it was a lot. Thanks for the suggestions. We're still trucking along with development. When we started programming this thing in 2009, we never thought we'd get this far as it had come, and yet here we are taking it even further. Version 3 indeed has, yes, present tense, a more dynamic weather system. I hadn't heard that one yet. I know John has always wanted it. or he's always been wanting a very dynamic style weather system in mind for that. He likes the AI humper idea, and he's going to add that to the list for AI improvements. Whether it's going to happen in version 3, not hard to say. Regarding DS screens, I do have an upgrade system in place. Keep in mind, though, that Run8 is and always has been primarily multi-platform, so I don't want to code a specific DS system. Some guys may prefer if they want to use it. For the single players, there is an AI this is the one I like. For single players, there is an AI dispatcher system in the works. It will also work in multiplayer as well, and more. And of course, a big question, when is it ready? And the answer is shortly after it's done, which is, you know, that's to be expected. Nobody's expecting this thing to come out December 31st. It's just it's nice to see the news. That's what I've been barking about. So we got the news. We got it on a forum that I'm familiar with, or, you know, even if I got a post that somebody was, you know, posting somewhere else and it was spread, it's just there was very little buzz I was hearing, and this was what I was hoping to see. So this is good, and as you can see, I, you know, all capitals indeed. So yeah, that makes me feel quite happy about the direction things are headed. So that is good, very good news. Like for example, now I don't know what's going to be in version 3, if it's going to be there, but the direction they're headed still is that to me solidifies that they're heading for the right direction. I think, you know, it never really, I mean, yeah, I'd love to see an editor, and I know it was talked about before. They've already talked last year about different routes and developers and all that other stuff, so we'll see what happens there. But still, what that does actually is it changes the way in which big servers that run not big servers, but I mean servers that run the entire California or whatever route can do things, and it also changes the way single players will run. If, in fact, you have an AI hump at a place like Barstow, West Colton, stuff that can actually go in. It doesn't necessarily have to build the trains, but to be able to break down trains is something that's really cool. Because then you start it off, and then basically you can go and do other things. So humping a train takes a good... Now how it's going to do that, I have no idea, but he likes the idea, so... And whether that happens, you know, by the time version 3 comes out, or if it happens down the road, that's fine. But the fact that they have an AI dispatcher system in the works as well, that one I'm hoping for version 3. I really am. Like I said, my cache is a little bit better. I was mentioning this the other night. My cache flow is much better now. So that's starting to make me look at where I want to do things, and I still have my own ideas too as to what I want to do. I'm not going to kill my ideas. Just, I said this before too, whatever Run8 does really isn't going to play too much of a factor. It's just something I like to keep in the back of my mind so that I know which way I want to go, and I can go a lot of different ways. If they take a certain part of the market that satisfies my needs, why would I develop something that would not be able to compete? And I'm not looking to compete with them. I'm looking for... I'm basically looking to get what I want out of train simulation. And I got a different way of doing it, but it wouldn't be so much a 3D type environment anyways. I'm looking more along the... I'm still looking more along the dispatching and overall railroad simulation style environments, and it's very difficult to capture it in a... when you have so many world assets, especially these routes that are getting so big. I got a funny feeling it's becoming very taxing, but I'm not sure. You know, you got a server running and you got a bunch of humps running and all kinds of other things going on. A lot could be going on. And AI, by the way, this AI dispatching is going to be another thing that taxes on the system. So certain systems like mine, I may be due for an upgrade. I'm actually overdue for an upgrade, but still, you know, when I heard that, I thought, okay, this is cool. So that, what does that do for? Now I'm gonna use a Southwest server for an example. What does that do for something like Southwest server? Well, right away, if things can run, provided that the quote-unquote Mobeta spawning system that they did talk about, they talked about this at the beginning of version 2. I don't know if that's still out there, forgotten about, or, you know, going to be there. But that system, if it works in tandem with, I assume it would have to work in tandem with the AI system. I can almost, I don't see why it wouldn't, personally. To me those two things have to work hand in hand, because now you're talking about train symbols that have a specific place it has to go to. So if you're coming up to Valley Junction and you're heading north, the AI dispatcher has to know to line you north. It has to know to line you west. It has to know to line you into Barstow Yard if it's Barstow, you know, heading into Barstow. It has to know those things. Once more, too, what that does is that allows, if it's 100% effective, that allows for potential of 24/7 operation. I don't know. I don't know how well that would work on a 24/7 server, such as the size of this, because now you're dealing with, first of all, you got the AI part and you got the AI operations. What you don't have yet is the AI switching. That's going to be the tricky part. I'm looking to incorporate that into RTS. Not RTS as in RTS for Run8. That's a totally different story, and I'm waiting to see whether or not I'm going to, what happens in version 3, whether or not I'll ever do something, or, you know, wait and see. But I'm not waiting for Run8. That's okay. I'll continue to be part of Run8. That's not changing. And I'm certainly looking forward to the time when I get to purchase for version 3, especially if it's going to have these things. I wasn't too into, when I heard some of the things they talked about with turntables and movable bridges. Hey, I was talking the other night about the canal simulator thingamajiggy that I'm looking to possibly work on next year after I get the dispatch project going. So I got a lot of big plans for 2019. Mind you, I get the urge to program, and that's something that I don't enjoy doing. So hopefully, with me, possibly if my son is really interested, if it's something that takes away, if it's something, put it this way, if it's something my son really enjoys and wants to do, which he says he does, or he's very interested and curious about, because he likes, like me, he likes creating, except he might be more inclined to try things. He's at that age where he just might want to run with something. If he wants to run with something, I might give him the tools necessary and say, okay, you got spare time, you're bored, here, create this, and see what he can do. I mean, he's only 10, but I wouldn't be surprised if he's capable of doing some things. At least doing some of the grunt creative work that would help feel like I'm not doing this alone. And that's what I feel sometimes when I get to. I had time tonight. Honestly, I had time if I wanted to, but I'm not at that stage yet. Yeah, and I should have been cleaning up some of the house tonight. I'll probably do that tonight if I'm running a train. If I'm running a train, I don't know if I'm running a train or what's going on. I don't think they're having 4 dispatchers. I highly doubt that. I think it'd be kind of cool, but that's okay. So, let me scout what I want. I haven't really done that yet. Well, I can start, let me see, if I start at Ilmon, looks like this guy's up at Ilmon here. Or I can start at Calente, if he's going that way. I can't remember what's going what. Let me see what, I'm curious what's up at Calente. Especially if it's a nice engine. Yeah, I like it. I like nice engines at Calente. That works. Alright, this is my train. Hey! Guess it's not my train. Either that or just did something. That was weird. I don't even know what kind of train this is. I haven't even really taken a look. Oh, hang on a second. I don't even have a tag on that thing. Relinquish. Oh, that's going. He's going the other way. I ain't worried about him. Oh, that's the Pittsburgh train. Forget it. Does he really got 4 engines on this tail end? Really? Oh, he's going to Pittsburgh. I ain't worried about him then. Okay. Okay, I'm not heading to Bakersfield with that. What's over at Ilmon? Might work. Got another good engine. Oh, decisions. That might be a good one. It's either that or I go up the cliff, possibly. What's happening at Cliff anyways? See, he's going to Barstow, but I'm not worried about that. Let's see what we got here. Wow, that's a huge train. Cool. I see some meats. Okay. I was saying before, I kind of want to do something. Well, okay, let me just grab that. Your train is unavailable. Ooh. Did I relinquish everything? Oh well, I don't get that train. Somebody stole it. No, it says it's AI. Why did it say that? I think I'll do that. I think we'll do that one tonight. I'm gonna check the post anyways to see what's going on. Whoops. Wrong link. That's the one. So what do we got? .9? Okay. So let's check the posts out while we're waiting around. Work list. Just want to see if anything else is updated. I don't think it has. Those are just trains headed out. Doesn't look like it. No. Okay. So I'm not going to worry about this tonight. But any other locals that really... No. Switching at... Whoa. What's this one? Hang on a second. Bonus points for several... for sorting out. Okay, well that's already been done or something. That's been assigned for humping, and that's just hostler hump. Blah blah blah. UP West Colton, and it's another hump. SBJ Yard. So these are the locals, they're not dispatcher required, but they're available. Of course, you get this on the registry on the forum. Run local performing pickups and setouts. Mainline switches needed have been set to manual. Update LA yards registry J yard. Oh, that has, see, it doesn't say dispatcher required, but that's interesting. Run local performing pickups and setouts. Mainline switches needed have been set to manual. Update LA yards registry J yard. What is SPJ yard? Hang on a second. Yeah, that sounds boring. Let the AI do that. I hate light power. SPJ yard. Let me take a look at that one. Man, it's been a while since I've actually done anything on this map. So East LA yard. Which one's the J yard? Is it the Los Angeles Junction? I gotta take a look at something here. Just out of curiosity. Alright, we got 741. Take a look at the pictures for a minute. No, I don't want it. Here. You go out of there for a minute. I'm going to go into pictures. It'll be San Bernardino. Let me take a look here. Oh, okay. I remember that. I've switched that before. Yeah, I think I'll pass on that. Page 11. I was gonna say, what the heck if they need manual switches up there? Like, oh, that runs along the top there. No, I've run that before. That was one of the locals I did run one time. Nah, I think I'll skip that. I think I have what I want tonight. So I mentioned about what would be definitely much more interesting. Let me make sure I got whoops. Okay. That's cool how that see how that light changes? I put it into forward and I've got a yellow. I put it into reverse and I get the restricting. I find that interesting. But anyways, whatever. I think that was the last. Was that the last signal? I guess that was the last signal. Which it shouldn't be. Those things should be repeating what's there. But anyways, whatever. Let me take the parking brake off for a minute. Hopefully I won't split everything. Okay, good. So the air is holding. Okay, I'll be back in a minute then, but I'll talk more about that in a few minutes. Okay, so now we're back here. So yeah, I was going to talk about the single player, dual player, really small groups, and how is this going to benefit with the changes being, or the upcoming changes down the road. Having the AI dispatcher is going to be as important of a change from version 1 to 2 than it was for 2 to 3. If indeed it's going to happen in version 3. If it's not the end of the world, as long as there's, to me, as long as there's enough version 3 and a lot of direction and change, because there's a lot of things that were supposed to come into 2 that didn't happen, and we didn't see it. And the one I'm thinking in particular is the spawning system. The spawning system was supposed to be much more TD3 like, and I liked it, and we never really got that. And I'd love to see a way. I'm not so worried about integrating RTS. That's the least of my concerns, to be quite honest. But I would love to see a way that it's possible to basically have a save file and be able to spawn it if you need be, but it's not an end all be all. What I see from a single player small, like say for example, I like the Southwest. Now there's a lot of at least what I consider issues with mishumps still. It's happened in the Northeast, but at least the Northeast we can pretty much salvage it, just like you can salvage it at Barstow if there's a mishump that takes place. Right now we can't salvage it in Waycross, and Waycross is by far the most important yard. It is probably the most prototypical yard there is. So for me, I'm looking at Waycross. I'm actually looking at the Southeast now. That's where my focus would head to. I'm not a big fan of honking my horn all over the place in various locations, but I do like the idea of being able to basically run, I don't know if I would say, I don't know 24/7. I really don't know about 24/7. What I do know is in single player, I'm trying to think now as far as the number of locals that would run. Let me go back to a big server like this. Let's say you have the AI dispatcher. In theory, you could run this 24/7 and have it dispatching all the time. In fact, I see that happen. I can see the big servers, such as Depot Plus, doing it. Most definitely, the servers like Depot Plus are going to. I think, if they're smart, they're going to take advantage of it. It'll be interesting to see whether or not places like Depot Plus or whatever, it'll be interesting to see whether or not someone like myself or someone who likes to dispatch can opt in. It'll also be interesting to see how good the AI dispatcher is. The AI dispatcher does not have to be perfect. It has to be safe. That's all it has to be. So in other words, when there's complex meets and all kinds of other things, it doesn't necessarily have to be that intelligent to figure it out. All it has to do is do whatever's safe. which means move traffic. It may not be the most efficient way. It may very well be the safest way. There's a difference between safety and efficiency. Safety will probably become more important than efficiency in that matter, because you don't have the human overhaul to ensure safety when you're trying to be efficient. It will basically, from a, I'm trying to think how something like, I'm looking at bigger servers first, because to me the bigger servers have the most to gain out of this, really. And the single players also have a lot to gain. I think it's a win-win. The big servers, if you have a lot of people running locals, you still have the ability. I still think small routes would really come into play here for single player, because or smaller routes, I should say. Or you just you basically start you run certain segments. Trying to think if I personally, like I said, I would probably run. I don't know if I would run. See, there's so much switching in the. That's the problem with the Southeast, is there's so much switching. I'm not 100% sure about that now. The Northeast now. Other than the fact that no. I'm trying from a single player standpoint, just trying to envision myself actually enjoying myself to my liking, and I can't see it. What Scott and I are doing in, for example, in Northeast, that's okay. That's pretty good, considering basically what that does is it allows me to dispatch and hump, and Scott's been able to bring trains into the. He's starting to bring trains into the yard the end of the other night. I'll be on Thursday this week because I got my son on Wednesday, so I'm going to join him on Thursday, which will be kind of different, but that's okay. It'll be weird on a Thursday not seeing my son, but that's okay. Nothing wrong with that. You know, and not just talking about Run8, but by the time Monday comes around, Sunday to Monday is such a big difference, especially by the end of Monday or the beginning into the Monday, because suddenly it's just like, it isn't as bad, or whatever started out as bad at the beginning of the day turns out you get back into the flow and the workflow, and it's just like, okay, I'm here now. There's nothing I can do about it. I got to get through this week until I get my next weekend. Not to mention I had all this time tonight. It was really nice. It was cool. But I didn't take advantage of it like I should have, but that's okay. I'm gonna enjoy it tonight. Maybe I'll get some stuff done. We'll see. I might do a little multitasking. The original plan was to take one of these up on the hill, and we're about 6 minutes away from the top of the hour here now. I'm just watching, see what's happening. Let me just make sure I've got the. There we go. Oh, that was interesting. I put it in reverse, and all of a sudden I hear the error, like, ooh. Previous signal was stop when I go that way. Previous signal was approach going that way. Okay. That's interesting. So, yeah, it's gonna be very interesting, I think. I think the single player. I don't know if Mike's here yet. The single player aspect or the dual. So how would it change? Like what say for example what Scott and I do? What would end up happening is I wouldn't have to dispatch, which I would have, I guess, more time to run the hump. And so I'm just paying attention to everything that's going on here. I guess I would need more time to run the hump, or I'd have more time to run the hump. I'm just trying to figure out what, because basically when you take away dispatching, for me personally, I'm like, okay, but it'll be interesting to see whether or not I can dispatch as part of a system in single player. In other words, would I be able to take control of a certain area as dispatcher with AI dispatchers around me? That'd be interesting. So I don't envision that, to be quite honest. I think that's so that would be very interesting to see, you know, how things go there. Because I certainly like dispatching. But the beauty thing about that is if I'm how do I word this? If I become, I don't know how, now AI dispatching, they would bring the trains in. There was even talk about the AI hump. Just getting ready to pay attention here since I'm out on a point. PM Eastern now. I'll have to think about this a little bit more, how that would, because I really haven't had time to digest the single player side of things. I can see single players, especially those that are just you know, just wanting to run or whatever are going to love it. Looks like the clock's on. Yep. So we'll have plenty of time to think about and digest this. I just want to concentrate for now. Okay, channel 14. I was trying to figure out why the sky was red. And away we go. All right. Let's see, it feels like there's some moonlight somewhere. Definitely running various routes or various jobs would be interesting. It doesn't, like, single player, and that's the goofy thing about it, is single player doesn't how would you say, you can do whatever you want, but from an operation standpoint, really, to get everything going, you need more than just a hump. You need actually somebody to switch, unless you are in a region that has limited industries. That I can see being a very appealing single track mainline. Like, for example, I was, what was it? I was just watching Mariah's Pass. Even when you look at this, Bakersfield is actually a pretty big switching area. Now, what would be really interesting is the ability, well, actually, you know, you can still run it this way without having to worry about Bakersfield if you focus on Mojave. Like, for example, that's what I was doing. I was going to do. And in fact, I could do it that way and use whatever spawn points that were available to me. So if I wanted to, I could, in theory, I could run whatever spawn points from wherever. And the beautiful thing about that is, no, I wouldn't necessarily have to focus on it if I wanted to run an operation. So I'll give you the case in point with Mojave, for example. And I'm looking at it because if I was to, say, for example, base my operations out of Mojave and simulate UP Mojave sub, I could even go so far, I think I could go so far as to spawn out of, well, I could spawn out of West Colton, give or take. But that would be very appealing to me, because now if I ran as single player, I'm just trying to think of how I would go that way. Actually, you know something? Actually, no, Barstow Needles. Especially if there's any type of humping operation going on. Hold on. Barstow has one local a day. So, let's say I don't run 24/7. Ah, crap. I'm not paying attention to my speed dropping. So let's say I'm not running 24/7. And I just run single player, or decide to run single player and host a little bit and have people come on during the day at various times. Set my speed control up here in a minute. So yeah, I base out of Barstow, the default route. and I have spawn points just outside. I don't have to worry about Cajon, even though Cajon's the more beautiful route. I can still base my operations out of Barstow, run a Cadiz local, run a Boron local, and be able to build trains and be able to have the AI dispatcher run while I do whatever. I mean, that's very feasible to me. And everything would spawn, assuming in some formal schedule. Now, the schedule is important, though, I would think. If you're going to have an AI dispatcher, you need a better AI spawning system. If otherwise, you're just basically manual spawning, and then the AI comes into play for bigger territories. Allows more people to do more work at various times, but you really need that spawning aspect. I think that's important, because if you have this random spawning thing going on, then you really lose focus of the time of day. It just becomes random train spawns, and it loses its reality. It always has for me, which is why the Southwest is so cool, because they actually spawn trains in, or call trains in, at specific times. It's a lot of work, but it's worth it. I don't think they have any. No, they don't have any AI spawn trains. They use AI, that's for sure, and I think that's, you know, it's a great idea. So yeah, when you're able to instead of having the AI dispatcher, the Southwest, basically they go by a schedule. They're just talking about updating the schedule for a particular cycle, and you can do all kinds of. You can do random variations to that schedule too. You don't have to have it spawn at the same time every day, and that's what was supposed to have come in before version 2, because they were talking about variance in the schedule, so that some trains would appear a little later or behind, but you would have the time that would normally show up at, and then it would program some kind of late factor thing. So it was really neat. One other thing I heard about was AI dimming their headlights. I just realized I was doing that, and I thought, yeah, that's something that's John has mentioned in another post. There's about 3 posts on the Train Sim forum where he interacted with 3 pretty popular threads going on there right now. So I think I started at least one of them, so that was good. I like stirring things up. I like getting conversations going. I don't like causing crap, but what I do like is debating. I think having a healthy debate and discussion about what people want or what people might need is always great. So for me, I would certainly run out of Barstow, and I wouldn't run necessarily 24/7. I would love to run 24/7 though, and I'll explain what I mean by that. Personally, I would love to run 24/7, 365, you name it, and have it so that it would be running on a server. Although there might be difficulties for me hosting a server down the road, but have a route that basically has enough interesting locals. I would probably flip the time of day. Probably something to where most people are available. I would create a daylight type thing. So in other words, the middle of the night, I guess, would be the middle of the night. I guess it would be very close to real time, except maybe altered. So kind of like West Coast right now. So it would be like 5:16 p.m. That makes sense. Whoops, going too fast. So yeah, running the default Mojave and out of Barstow and operating out of Barstow would be very intriguing to me. Now, of course, there's still a side of me that would love to dispatch as well. So having the ability to dispatch would be nice, or pull into one of them. Of course, that would bring Needles in, because one of the operations is Needles. Now, I don't know how that would work as far as AI dispatching. If you would be able to dispatch what you want, or just that would become, you know, you either take it or leave it type thing. In other words, you're either dispatching or you're not. But it would work in multiplayer too, he said. The AI dispatching, so it would be in single player, but it would work in multiplayer too, which is, like I said, that to me is tailor-made for Depot Plus type. And the reason why I say Depot Plus as opposed to Southwest or what was once RTS or anything like that is because the number of people that are available to run, that is the biggest pool of people that they have. And that's tailor-made for it, because then they can run 24/7 like they are now, except they would have, if they had it right, they would have full trains, like full train loads. So wherever you're running or wherever you're taking a train, you're going to see full traffic levels, and that's something that I've always enjoyed being part of. Especially if I'm going to run a heavy traffic area, that's what I want. Ideally, though, I still would long for a railroad that is not necessarily, I mean, yes, a class 1, but not necessarily a major mainline. Something that is potentially secondary. I can think of a few that may or may not have sidings or double track, that doesn't get as much traffic as a transcontinental would, but allows for less requirements on workload for locals, because then I know of at least one person that likes to run locals and has a lot of time on his hands. And there's a lot of people out there that have a lot of time. So there's a lot of people who are retired who would love to be able to partake in something like that, especially in the winter months when they can't get out that much, or they, you know, don't really want to get out. So I mean I'm thinking, for example, I'll might as well name bomb right now. Scott. That to me be perfect for him, because then he's able to actually run a portion of the server. He's probably able to do a lot of the locals if he wants to. And what really makes me want to do locals isn't the work. It's being part of a system. So you may have noticed earlier tonight I was looking on the work list. I was looking for specific locals that needed dispatch. There was one that I thought I had because they talked about manual switches, and then I realized it was J-Yard, which is kind of beside the main line, but it's not really interactive with the main line. So something like an Edison local, for example, or something like the Cadiz local or the Boron local. Those type of things, really actually even more interactive. Edison's okay, but something that maybe even works, let's say down by one of the locals that come out of Victorville, that services the industries in that area, or even some of the ones that service LA, even in the multi-track areas or whatever. That's fine too. Or places that have to cross, like at Diamonds and stuff like that. And, there's all kinds of things there where now all of a sudden I don't mind running a local, because I don't feel like I'm alone in the world, because now you got an AI dispatcher that is controlling things, and you have AI traffic, and if it operates properly, it's treating you as the lowest person on the totem pole. So it's doing exactly, what you would expect it to do. You're going to be waiting in sidings, or you're going to be, I don't know how that would work with you having to get out of the way, or them getting you to get out of the way. It may be AI assisted, I am not sure. I call AI assisted a little bit different than just AI. Sorry, I had to figure out where I was. And running a main line for the sake of running a main line gets a lot more interesting too when you're being dispatched. I was saying the other day, I mean, some of the double track sections, it's just, watching trains go by. It's not that exciting, but to have some complex operations involved, that would be really neat. Especially if you throw some locals in there. So I think I'm very optimistic for what they may have in mind. When I heard, like I said, when I heard about the various things, and I was talking about the bridges. Bridges are great. I've loved canal bridges all my life. So seeing that we had, you know, I'm by the Welland Ship Canal, and it was one of my first bike trips as a kid, and just to get down there, I love trains and I love ships, and seeing that they were actually going to incorporate movable bridges, because that's something that I always liked seeing in the southeast route, was the fact that they had these bridges now, and I thought, oh, it'd be really cool if they're movable, and now that's very well could be the case in version 3. It's intriguing, but at the same time, I don't know how many trains are going to be sitting there watching the bridge go up and down. So that's why I was a little bit hesitant. Plus, it's eye candy. Eye candy's great, but I'm much more interested in seeing the you know, how how do we say, not so much, I mean, turntables can be operational, but I'm more interested in operational things. Turntables, okay, it has a point. I don't know if Barstow actually has a turntable or not, or some of these other places that don't have them in there now. But yeah, I can see a turntable being interesting, especially if it's operational. But functionality is for me is what gets me excited. Being able to, I mean, I ideally, either two things: either I get to run and I know the jobs that are at hand, I know everything that's basically laid out. You get used to a certain schedule, so you run 24/7 and you're running trains. I think it's very intriguing to have a 24/7 server that runs real time and actually runs trains on a schedule, so that, you know, you know what to expect at different times of day, night, whatever. Of course, that means sometimes you're going to be sleeping during the times where one of those trains might be very interesting to you. I mean, I can think of the Amtrak trains, for example. But if the AI system's set up and it actually simulates delays, well, some of those trains can be 3 hours late. So I think it's intriguing. Yeah, that's why I hit the flasher. From a personal standpoint, I would definitely look forward to purchasing or at least exploring some of the smaller routes. I really hope we get some developers or the possibility of development. Open it up to people to, you know, even if they've never made a route before, like myself, for example, or others, I would love to see people have the ability to contribute regions or routes. Not necessarily, I'm not talking freeware. I think this is obviously something that should make them money. So in order to get it into the program in different areas, I still think having an editor or something, or having the editors available. But hopefully that's something, they haven't mentioned that yet. It's okay, it's not the end of the world. I'd still get version 3 for this alone. I really would. But I know how many people would just love it. I know it. I know how much I would love just the opportunity. I know how much my son would love the opportunity. You talk about my son who has no interest in Run8. You put that in front of him, that changes everything. If he's got the ability to create a route in Run8, he is going to get into this. Absolutely. And that's something I would love to do. Like, he's definitely into trains. He runs something called Train Player, and it's kind of like a model railroad simulator type thing. It's kind of weird how he's still running it, because I bought that for him, not for much money too. I bought that for him a couple years ago, I think. So it's amazing that it's still something that he's still plays with, actually. And he can do what he wants, whatever, how he wants. He's not into necessarily operations, but he's certainly into the creative side of things, so I think it's kind of cool. That's another reason why I did this one tonight. I remember from last time there was going to be some traffic. Yeah, I was having a hard time. A lot of the trains weren't fitting along, because that's a smaller siding, and that's why I like this. This is the kind of running of the mains I like doing. I like so far I've had a clean shot, but now I'm waiting for 2, and then I'll be waiting for another 2. So that's kind of cool. But see, if you run an operation, even with I don't know. Some trains are daily, some trains are Monday to Friday. Even if you ran a single player 24/7 server that was in a smaller route, and you're managing, you know, you're just managing, like let's say Mariah's Pass. Now I can't remember exactly. Obviously, that's a Northern Transcon, and there's the what do you call it? You know, there's a few yards up there, but it's basically mountain railroading, similar to this, very similar to this actually. But there's, I think, Shelby or something, Montana. There's some yards in there where it veers off into a few locals and industries. So being able to work that yard on a daily basis. So you set up your server for a certain time. You schedule your trains whenever is convenient to you. That's the other thing too. I mean, you can proto-lance. So if locals, you know, if you like running in more daylight as opposed to night, you know, you could jack the clock, say offset at 7 hours, run it in Japanese Standard Time, whatever, you know, from the East Coast, whatever the hell Japanese Standard Time is, you know, run it 12 hours or in the middle of the day or whatever, and then, you know, while you're at work or whatever, have night, and then on the weekends you get to do a little bit of night running if you want. Because most time on the weekends, I don't know about you, but if it's nice out, I want to be out and about. I don't want to be, especially when I'm with my son. But at night, when I can't get outside, no, you know, I might want to be entertained. I might want to do something like this, and I do right now. I'm running Run8 3 times a week right now. Even despite the unknown, I've still been doing Run8. So, oops. Damn hood's in my way. Yeah, well, actually. Yeah, damn hood's in my way. Okay, forget it. Wanted to look out the left window, but that's okay. Well, I suppose I could have looked down. It just looks like I was too high. Oh, that's what I thought. There we go. No, I'm too high. sort of a view, but not quite. That's okay. Not a big deal. I don't want to look at the dispatch board because that'll tease me. Well, I already know what's coming up, sort of, but I don't want to know where the actual trains are right now. I use it versus, you know what they use, instead of a dispatch screen they need a little schedule screen. They used to have something, but it was this, just showed you what the signals were. That'd be kind of cool. But, no, so yeah, you're in single player and you run with the dispatch set up for you. So, you know, whether you're the type of person that has a lot more time, depending, you know, you can judge what route works well for you, or what trains, or how big of a region you want to dispatch or set up for spawns and everything. But then you basically would say at the end of a real day at work, you know, you come home and there's a yard there waiting that's been has all these new arrivals, and they could have power attached to them. It doesn't really matter, because so many arrivals come to your yard, and maybe you have certain ones that you set up to leave earlier in the day, etc. And then you basically break them down and turn them into locals. Maybe you only have one arrival. Maybe it's just one inbound, one outbound. Maybe you have a few. Doesn't matter. But it's able to come in. Now, I don't know if it would be able to actually quote-unquote come in, but maybe it just holds on the control point just outside your area, or it holds at a holding siding or something. That'll be interesting to see how that works with the AI dispatching. What will happen with those regional trains? What happens to those ones that need to get into a yard that may or may not have automatic switches? How's it going to do it? So there's a lot of questions. So when we talk AI dispatching, then suddenly it raises just as many questions as it does answers. But at least it's on the right track. You're now in the process of having a territory that what we're doing tonight, Hans is dispatching the central region. Well, now you're basically in a situation now where you actually could be single player and not spawning trains and not dispatching your own territories, but actually running trains where you want to run them. And guess what? It's going to dispatch. You're going to get different meets. You're going to get different situations. So I think that's really inviting, for me anyways. I mean, I've made no bones about it. I love dispatching, but speaking of Hans, there he is. I've made no bones about it. I love dispatching, but I also like being dispatched. So it actually, I don't mind humping yards too. That's I find an interesting activity. Building trains, it just hasn't been my thing for a while. Like running the trim, I don't like going between the hump and the trim and the hump and the trim and the hump and the trim. I can't stand that. If I'm gonna trim, that's okay. I don't mind that. Then I just want to trim. That's okay. I don't mind doing that, because then that's my duty, to trim and build trains, to trim and build trains. That's okay. But having to do both, I didn't mind it at one time, but it grew old. It grew really old rather quick for me. So that having that AI hump is actually intriguing, because now, because don't get me wrong, I like the hump, I love the hump, actually. I enjoy doing it. It's actually a relaxing way of doing things. But to have an AI hump, now all of a sudden it's just like, okay, well, you're just setting up, you set up the brake and all that other stuff, then you go back to trimming or doing whatever you were doing before. Maybe moving power around, you know, maybe you're going to be a hostler or whatever while things are going on. You can run some engines in and around the shops or whatever, or run something into the local yard, and you know, you got cars going above you at Barstow or Selkirk or whatever. You're going into that tunnel, and you know, there's a lot of really cool. You feel a lot more than just single player. And what happens, I find, which it's always been difficult for me, whether it been version 1 of Run8, whether it been the RTS, the original RTS, back in the version 1 days, I didn't mind running the locals back then as much, because there was more, the purpose meant more than just running a train for the sake of running a train, because there wasn't that much dispatching. But then when AI came, suddenly that changed a lot, because now not only did I not want to just run a train without others around, but I also stopped being interested in just running locals in an empty spot. I was so used to the traffic that it gets very different. This feels real to me. This feels more than how many people are on tonight. I think it's pretty packed tonight, actually. That's not bad. But this because I've seen so many AI trains thus far, and I know this is a much bigger world that's running. I feel as though it's literally part of 30, 40, 50, you name it. So I mean, even coming up to a signal like that, I mean, that is appealing to me. Whether it be player controlled or even AI, if it's, you know, if it's doing something that seems realistic, or at least trying to be realistic, I think it goes a long way. Because every dispatcher has their own techniques in that. I like the idea of actually coming up that I'm waiting for 2 and then waiting for 2. I think that's pretty cool. Because I know traffic's pretty heavy on Mojave Sub tonight. will be a fun little challenge. Okay, I'm at an idle style, so I'll be okay for a few minutes. I was finding I was getting too close too quick, so I let off the throttle too soon. I meant to roll at about notch 5. It slowed down awfully quick once I got it down to 3. I knew it was going to stall out at 4. They usually do. I'm going to try a notch 5 here. A lot of power. This guy could be bigger than the main tube, but I'm not sure. Yeah, he's got a lot of power at 5. Okay, let's bring it down to 4 now. Yeah, I figured he might be longer. With mid-train helpers, he's probably longer. Which means he'll stop at the other end unless he's got it going. Picked a good night in the right train. And unfortunately, these trains don't really help, other than, I mean, if the AI can do it, then it's not like it's assisting anybody for getting the yards done or stuff like that, but love using the accelerometer in this, because once you start losing your forward momentum, that's when you notch it up. But you don't notch it before, because, especially not with high stress on the engines. See, now I'm going. I got enough fast momentum that I can pick it up even more. There we go. At least that's how it works good for me. It's only been an hour. Well, that's because I was spending so much time praising the info, not the update, but the info on what's coming down the road. There we go. Not quite what I had in mind with that meat, but that's okay. All right. Didn't have to wait long. The other train, it looked like the other train was just coming behind him, so. But yeah, I think there's a lot of promising things now. I was concerned, I'll be honest, I was concerned, but you know, what was it, what's this been, 6-7 years now? They seem to, just when you wonder, they seem to have something in the background just lurking to surprise you. And I should know by that now that that's eventually what they're going to do. It's just, I guess it's the lack of information sometimes, and you don't hear much, and sometimes, I mean, they did the good thing though, because they did talk about the end of this year, so being able to you know, at least get people out on the forums talking about it, that's good. And especially from John too, that's really neat. So I find John gives a lot of information and hints, more than, not to say, you know, that Brad or, you know, or anybody, you know, wouldn't give as much information. It's just he's the developer, so he, you know, he'll mention, not the developer, he's the programmer, so he'll mention a few things sometimes where Brad would be more cautious about it from a business standpoint, I find. Obviously he's an owner too, but okay, it is Woody. That's what I thought. It's been a while and I don't want to look at them. I don't want to look at the F3. Thought the detector was going to go off. That would be funny. I got a funny feeling we're going to have a lot of surprises with the weather, and I kind of, I had a funny feeling that was coming. It's going to be interesting. never know. I might put a server back up, but where I'm moving, I'm going to be on Wi-Fi, so I got to see how the client runs first on version 2 before I even consider. Like, running on this server, I am at, just by distance alone, I am 65, which isn't too bad, so I am actually one of the, not the lowest, but one of the lower ones, so it's pretty good. Whoops. See if I do this one better. light. What you just seen there, the last two meets and the double meets, you're not going to see that in any other sim, as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, you could create an activity, but that's even in Microsoft Train Simulator, that would have been a very challenging activity to create and get it to work right. I'm not saying it can't be done. I created some pretty cool activities too, but getting it to do a double meet like that, you have to have waiting points and all kinds of other things. That's not easy to do. And all this is all organic, based on just the way the trains are being spawned. And yeah, you have a lot of grain trains tonight. Been doing a pretty good job dispatching this so far. Some nice for holding double. I actually expected to be waiting there for a little while. That actually were nicely timed meets. And as someone who loves dispatching, I can really appreciate it from the cab view. And that's the kind of thing I like, you know. I don't expect the AI dispatcher to be that good, but we'll see. Didn't even have to set the... didn't even come down to a stall. Ah, we're at mid-train still. I forgot about these damn grain trains. Those mid-train helpers. Basically, the whole idea and the AIs don't do this, but the whole idea, at least for me, and I'm not an expert engineer, but you want to number one, get yourself in the hole as quickly as possible. So I put the counter on as soon as I'm clear, then I wait. Depending upon the size of the how big the siding is. There we go. This might work out good. I was just trying to figure out what that was. Depending upon the size of there we go. Perfect. Didn't even come down to 0. So you get out of the hole, into the hole as quickly as you can, which I was at notch 8. set the counter. As soon as you are clear, you're no longer holding anybody else up. So you're helping the dispatcher and the rest of the guys. Then, especially going uphill, you basically stall out the engine. You get it down to notch 4. Notch 3 will really decrease it, because then you'll actually stall where you're going to need brakes to hold the train. But notch 4 will hold the train. Lost the dispatcher. Oh yeah. Put the lights back on. So that there, I didn't have to hold it. I just had to basically keep it rolling. The whole idea of keeping it rolling is it makes it a lot easier to get going once you start it, because you already have the forward momentum. Yeah, version 1 I found did it more than version 2. Version 1 doesn't like it when I turn off HDMI and I turn the TV off. It used to crash. I don't think it does it for version 2 though. I can keep the TV off, and yeah, I used to do it at night and it was fine. But version 1 used to crash it all the time. Huh. Interesting. There we go. 9:23 Eastern now. Make the summit. Not gonna make it to Barstow, but we'll get. I think we'll get past Mojave tonight. I think it's looking pretty good. This is my favorite spot to do a run by. Haven't even seen my train yet, so. And the reason why it's my favorite spot is because it stays with the train. And then follows the engine, and you get to see the whole train usually. Depending upon the size of the train, this one I don't think is big enough to overlap, but that's okay. That's pretty cool. It might be enough. Nope, I see the engine. Or do I? Maybe not. You can do this way too, if you want to catch it all. Okay, we'll hit the alerter. Okay, be right back. time for the alerter. Today's simulation day is July 12th, 2018. Just looking at the calendar, or the date there. Yeah, I was going to do some work around the house tonight, and then I thought, yeah, I'll just relax and enjoy it. Send Ski an email. I haven't heard from him in months. I know he was really busy at work not too long ago, but the thing is, and I mean I say this with all due respect to anybody, especially those that, you know, are very busy at work because things changes. There was somebody who was, actually there's been a few people in RTS in the past who got really busy at work or said that they were busy at work, and I'm not saying that, I'm not discounting Ski or anybody else. I can't even think of, there's a few people I can't even think of names, and these are very big admins for RTS at one time. But it just, they get busy, and then whenever they get free, they find they don't miss it anymore, I think. I don't know. Or you know, other things become important or whatever, but I've seen a lot of people just disappear. Yeah, I mean, they're still around, but I mean, Ski and I would email each other, but I haven't, I'm gonna have to send him an email, see how he's doing. There's someone in particular, I can't remember his name. He was an admin for RTS, and I'm trying to remember his name. It's been a while. It's been a long time. I would say at least 3 years. And it's not like he's on another server, because he's not. as I know, anyways. But oh yeah, Todd. That's the name I'm thinking of. But there's more recent names too that come to mind. I'm trying to remember. A little over 2 years ago now. A year and a half, 2 years ago, there was my memory is horrible. Sometimes my short-term memory is worse than my long or mid-term memory, I guess I call it. My short-term's not too bad, but when it gets beyond a few weeks, sometimes I get lost. But I know all these people, especially anybody who was in a Mint for RTS. I can think of a lot of people that have come and gone. And, you know, I'm just trying to think. I'm trying to think if they've all version 2s, or if there's some in the version 1. Didn't get to come around for version 2, but I'm not sure. Obviously, Ski was in version 2. He was here not too long ago, a few months back, but I'll have to see how he's doing. I was thinking about him the other day. I was just like, wow. I owe him. I'll tell you that much. I owe him. So I was kind of hoping something was going to come out on Christmas, but or by Christmas, but I don't think that's going to happen. So, but he bought me the LA route. I remember I think out on a trip someplace with my son, and I came back and I was checking emails, and on the emails I was checking, it was like it was either emails or text or phone or something, but whatever it was, Ski had said that he had bought LA for me. I'm like, because I guess, you know, he knew that things were tight, and I was watching my money and stuff like that, but he thought I could really use it, and I did. I haven't used it for a while, unfortunately, but that could all change once version 3 comes out, if it's all compatible and all, but I'm getting a lot of clears now. It's kind of weird because Wednesday, you know, is literally a hump for me. No kidding. Or no pun intended or whatever, but being the hump day, it is actually the point at which I get over knowing that from that point forward, the Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and into a little bit of Sunday, I'll see my son. Not that I got my son, or I'll see my son. Of course, that's not going to matter too much once I move back in the basement where he lives, because I'll probably see him a lot more until he gets a little older, and then, you know, I'll probably see him less, but more, maybe more often. I'd see him more often until he's moved out of the house, which could be in his 30s. At the rate kids are moving out of houses these days, which is fine by me. I don't care. Whatever. He can move out when he's ready. But those are some of the changes that I'm not necessarily looking forward to, but the good change coming up is when I do move and become basically a tenant of my ex-wife, which is kind of crazy, but it sounds crazy, but it's not as crazy as it sounds. Although my buddy thinks I'm nuts. Actually, I shouldn't say my buddy thinks I'm nuts. Most people think I'm doing the right thing. He doesn't like it. And he was the best man at our wedding. He said, I'll tell you in a second. Too loud. Whoops, that don't look right. Oh, I'm way up there, that's right. There we go. So yeah, he's I said, why don't you like the idea? He says, because it's your ex. I said, we get along fine. So I don't know what he's afraid of. He has or what he doesn't like about that. I mean, I did have one person warn me about moving in to the basement of my ex-mother-in-law's. Well, she passed away this year. This is why I'm back in the basement. I told my buddy, his name's John, I told him, I said, John, look, I'm going to be closer to my son. That's what matters to me. It's going to be costing me less money to rent there than it would be renting here. I get free cable. Now, granted, I'm going to be on Wi-Fi, or not Wi-Fi, yeah, I guess Wi-Fi, yeah. I'll be on Wi-Fi, which I'm not looking forward to that. I'll try to convince her to run a cable down for me. But we'll see about that. But, yeah, it's, wow, 9:46, okay. Yeah, I'll definitely get into Mojave. I'll be out in the desert at least. I'm definitely not making it to the Barstow. I highly doubt it. Not at the manifest train. If I was an intermodal, I might, but I'd rather be a manifest tonight anyways. Much more fun. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that, and that will probably change. I'm thinking it's going to change my outlook on Sundays quite a bit. From what I understand, like of course we have an arrangement between me and my ex, right? Custody arrangement or whatever you call it. But from what I understand, now, right now as it stands, even though the arrangement's pretty good and it's gotten better over the years, my son still definitely sees my ex more than me. That's just because he lives there, and I work, so there's only so much you can do. I can't get there before 3. I can't get there before 5 o'clock Monday to Fridays. It's much better than when I used to commute. You know, I wouldn't get back until 6. When I was working in Oakville, and getting stuck in traffic and all that other stuff, which is just a suburb outside of, not a suburb, but city not too far outside of Toronto, between Hamilton and Toronto. I would, a lot of times, if I was lucky, I'd get off at 3. A lot of times it was very difficult for me to get home by 6. I remember those nights. Those weren't fun. But yeah, this, you know, for me, this is way better. I get home at 5, so you know, my son gets out school at 3:30, whatever the hell it is, and he's going to be with my ex for 2 hours every weekday, no matter what. And then he's going to be there. You know, I'll get him at 5 o'clock, pick him up on a Tuesday or a Thursday. This week it's going to be a Tuesday, Wednesday, but pick him up at 5 o'clock, and then used to have to drop him off early. I forget what time I used to drop him off at. I think by 8. But now he gets to stay up a little later, so I get to drop him off at 9. I think he stays up till 9:30, 10, something like that. Probably 10 o'clock. He stays up till 11 or 12 o'clock here on weekends, depending upon how we're both feeling. But for school nights, I understand that. Him being 10 years old, so. But no, it's I guess the arrangement, what that's going to be like, apparently, is he's going to basically, as long as he's got the okay of the other, so in other words, if he's with me on a weekend and he wants to go see his cats or whatever and visit them, which means goes upstairs, or if he wants to, you know, go to his bedroom or check out something or whatever the heck he wants to do, you know, upstairs with his mom, as long as his mom's okay with it, he can do it. And I'm fine with that. And for him, if he wants to come and see me because he's bored or whatever, or doesn't want to watch TV, or wants to do something, or just, you know, say hi and watch a YouTube video with me, or watch wrestling or anything like that, or, you know, who knows what else, but as long as it's okay with me, he'll be allowed to come downstairs. Apparently that's the arrangement that is going to take place. That's what he tells me. I said, well, I says, are you sure about that? I says, because I got to talk to your mom about that. I says, you know, because if I was him, I would, at least from what I understand how he feels most of the time, he would be spending a lot more time with me than he is now. But I don't know. I don't know what to think about that one. But, you know, I like to think he likes to spend more time with me than his mom, but yeah, doesn't matter. He needs his mom too. I mean, I guess me being a guy and he being a boy, I guess that's, or a young man, or whatever you want to call it. He, you know, he gets to, I guess, relate more to me in some ways. Like he's not interested in shopping. Remind you though, it's getting tough. It's getting tough now. I'm finding, keeping him and I on the same page. It was cool because we went for a walk down an abandoned railway line on Saturday. Like I said, I had a great weekend. We walked down this abandoned railway line, not an abandoned rail line, abandoned right-of-way, I guess you would call it, or the old right-of-way. It was just ballast, old ballast in the snow. And it was fun. I had never been on that track. It's in Niagara. It's NS&T in Niagara. It runs just south of Thorold, heading towards Font Hill, Welland area. And we walked it. We walked through. They made this tunnel underneath the 406. It used to be an overpass. I remember that as a kid. I've seen very few trains on that line. I think I've only ever seen 2 trains on that line in my recollection. But then back by the last time they were running, I wasn't old enough to drive, I don't think. So it was much difficult for me to get in a position to see these things. I think I was in my early teens. They were still running before they abandoned it, but oh, it was crazy. There was sections of it that were out in open fields and farms, and you could see rabbit tracks and deer and all kinds of deer tracks and all kinds of things. But then when you got a little further, or sorry, a little closer when we first started, we were going through overgrown brush. It was really cool. I've seen worse abandoned lines, like stuff that's 40 years old that we've walked on, but this one was, I remember when the line was there. It was really cool. But yeah, so we had fun, but then that was Saturday. Sunday it's hard to get him out of the house, I find. I think he starts getting into the same pattern that I get into, where we both are like, yeah, weekends coming to an end and back to reality type thing. Flashing yellow. Just curious what the signal is. Okay. I was just curious if one was coming up a cable. The flashing yellow, he's probably on Fleet right now, but yeah, I couldn't. I said, okay, well, if you don't want to go outside, you don't want to go, because we ended up walking over down the south end of Port Dalhousie this time, walking along the old Welland Canal, and I said, well, I says, if you don't want to go out, what do you want to do? I said, do you want to play Subsistence? No. You know, he doesn't really, not really interested in that. He's not interested in this game. He's not interested in, you know. It's hard to find video games that him and I are both interested in. We don't do multiplayer at the moment, him and I. His computer has been laying dormant. Now, mind you, I got furniture and crap in front of it at the moment, but I told him, I said, I'd move it. If you really want to do a multiplayer thing, I'll move it. So I got to talk to him this week about what he really wants to do. But still haven't figured that out. I said I don't mind buying things, and I was more reluctant before when money was tight. I said I don't mind buying more games. I said the problem is we buy stuff and he grows tired of it quick. He says, yeah, but you do too. I says, yeah, that's true. I says, but I says, I'm gonna buy a game that I'm interested in. I said, but there's really not that many certain genres that I'm interested in. Survival, transportation simulation, that's about it. I said, but he says he loves tycoon games, so I was thinking about going with Railroad Empire, but I don't like, I don't mind tycoon games, but I don't like Railroad Tycoon 2 was probably the closest to what I like, but I don't like the ones where you're actually, oh, what's the word I'm thinking of? There's a word. I think I see a train coming down. Micromanaging. I don't like games that you have to micromanage. If I'm going to be the owner of a railroad, I want stuff to start doing stuff. You know, create my directives, build my track. You know, maybe I'll build the track, but other than that, you guys, this is the trains I want. You dispatch them and figure it out. Type thing. Okay. HFP. So yeah, we'll see. I already bought him. Haven't got it yet, but I believe his sensei's ordering it for me. $250 or something, a heavy bag, because he's into karate and he can kick the crap out of anything, really. So the speed bags, you know, they're pretty useless for his karate. He's got to basically work on combos and stuff like that. Technique, power, being able to footwork. So a nice heavy bag would be good. It's not, I shouldn't say it's a heavy bag. It's actually I guess it is a heavy bag, but it's not the one that hangs. It's a smaller heavy bag that you put sand and water in it, and it basically, it'll move. It knocks the crap out of your floor. So I think it's going to be down in the basement with me, probably in the cement part of the basement, in the common area, probably by the washer or whatever. But he can go in there and kick the crap out of it, and I don't think it should wreck the floor, as far as I know. Because I went to his sensei. He says, "So what does that do to the floor?" I says, "It wrecks the hell out of it." I said, "Oh, okay. Good to know." It's not coming. I says, "You're not going to want it upstairs then." So, hell, if he's not using it, I might use the damn thing. To be quite honest, I think that'd be kind of fun. Uh-oh. Get off the tracks. The gas prices have come down. never thought to check what the gas prices are there. I know they don't come down. I'm just being... Almost up at Summit now. I don't know. We'll get past. I think we'll get past Mojave, but I don't think we'll get into the single track that much. westbound. That's been an enjoyable run tonight for 2 hours. And you've enjoyed the last hour. Made it to the summit. turn the sand off. Oh yeah, looking at the signals, I'm like, they're not lit up. I'm like, that's because they're intermediates. There's nothing coming. Must be a bare table train. Even though it's a boxcar train. There we go. Or an intermodal train. I just don't have the trailers. Just concentrating right now on the my descent. Yeah, I thought that was going to happen. That's where the minimum has to come in. What's weird is I didn't touch anything there. At least not that I saw. That was weird. I thought he was flying by. I knew something caught my eye. Honestly, too, with the changes that's coming up, possibly for version 3, I may be interested in Seligman. Not interested in it yet. I got too much as it is, but I shouldn't say that. Yeah, I guess I do. I don't know. Who knows? I've had fun with LA too, but I haven't used LA in a while. Should make a point of running one of these days. We'll see. Now, getting back to the whole AI discussion with regards to this server. So, as far as I know, they've gone from 2 to 1 dispatcher, or sorry, 2 to 1 actual session. I don't know why I don't remember some of those buildings in the dark like that over there. Oh my god, oops, I better watch what I'm doing here. Can't see. There. But going to doing that is so that more work gets done. I'm thinking hard to say. Well, with the hump, that'll help. That'll certainly help. I still think you really ideally could use an AI that knows how to switch or sort, but then you can always go with what I call the escape valves. Actually, I think that's what Scott, he coined that phrase. But they're basically where you have sections of yards. He coined the phrase, but the idea was that I set up particular yards and sidings to turn trains. I started doing it on the Sanford sub. Never really got to experiment too much, but the whole idea was to emulate that something got switched whether or not humans were there to switch it. So I could continue doing the mainline operations and dispatching regardless of whatever, and I can continue doing the hump. Or no, I didn't do the hump back then. So but I don't know how this work in something like here. Ideally, having the ability to dispatch helps, but I think the issue is that the work is not getting done. However, yeah, that's a tough one, because there's so much manpower needed in such a huge area. That's the problem. I don't think it's gonna help. It's gonna help the bigger servers, but some of the smaller servers that try to run California and try to run in its entirety are not going to be able to do what some of the big servers. In other words, what the Southwest does now, I think, is better than what Run8 Depot does, personally. That's my own opinion. I'm talking Depot Plus. I know Depot Plus, they move a lot of stuff. They have, you know, dispatchers around the clock, blah, blah, blah. They don't, in my opinion, on a regular basis run stacked what you would expect in a session type environments. And I don't mean stacked, I mean realistic traffic levels. They don't do that. They run trains whenever they can, and then, you know, or whoever's available to dispatch, and they just move whatever. It's, from what I understand, it's very similar to what RTS-1 was like, except it's got some AI functionality to it. They're only going to, I think their version 3 is going to improve it. However, it's not going to help, or sorry, it's not going to help a server like this as much, I don't think. It will a bit, but not nearly as much. if that makes sense. Oh yeah, both signals come on there. I was looking at the bridge and I'm like, it's approach lit. I was like, that's because both signals come on. Whoops. Watch the speed. Well, 10:32. I did make it to Mojave. Let's see if I get a mainline run. Track speed. Had it for a little bit there. I'm personally, for Scott and I think it's going to benefit. I think it's going to benefit single player, and I think it's going to benefit the smaller servers the most. It's gonna the ones that, unfortunately, I can't quite. The only thing I can think of is if people how would I say this? You almost here's my idea on it. I love the 24/7 concept. After all, I was the one who created it. Well, I didn't create 24/7, but I mean, I was the first server to do it. So having the 24/7 concept was all about when Anarchy was first done on dams. I looked at that and said, well, if people are going to do Anarchy and it works, which it did, and I never thought Anarchy would, why not just let's do it 24/7 and then try to manage the membership base? But it was important for me to manage the membership base so that I could police the server, basically. But I think, in retrospect, I would go back to something that I originally had set up. If I was still doing RTS, or if I decide to go back to RTS, I would try to find times that people were good for other people, and then be able to turn the AI on during those times so that people could meet at various times throughout the week for 3 hours maybe at a time or whatever, on a big server like or a big regional server. In other words, California being the biggest region, something big like this. That's what I would do if it was me. I'd say, okay, let's find out who likes to run when, and place times where we can put the AI on so that we can AI dispatch. That would entice more people. I'm telling you right now, I would run more locals if stuff was running. I wouldn't hesitate. If stuff's running, people are going to come, basically. Oh, I forgot to call the signal. I saw it there, but advance to DNS. There, Joseph Junction. So people would show up. There's more. That's really why I don't like, you know, I mean, yeah, tonight I could run any local, I suppose, but I also like being dispatched. So this is the one opportunity I get to be dispatched, or the sole opportunity in a week I get dispatched. Guess what? I'm gonna sit behind a train. That's why I was looking for I was looking for the more dispatched ones, but where I was actually doing something that was beneficial, that required manpower, such as switching. So that's what I was looking for tonight. And of course, being, you know, between midnight and 3 a.m. on the clock, I knew I wasn't going to get much of that anyways. So, but, and this also goes back. Oh, I can hear the BNSF detector. This also goes back to the whole idea of, instead of, because crews are based primarily, are called based on crew availability a lot of times, not necessarily what the call times are. So you could actually have it as a demand-driven system to some extent. You could go so far as to run it 24/7 and have the clock on, run at 90%, and then have the locals, well, I wouldn't say 90%, but have it so that certain trains come in at certain times or whatever. But you could really do a demand-based system, I think, that would work pretty good. It's 02:43 right now, 10:44 Eastern. Oops. Kind of didn't mean to cheat, but it looks like I cheated a bit. So it's a train of boron. I don't think I'm going to get too many more meats, so just enjoy some open running by the looks of it. So yeah, there's a lot of interesting things to ponder coming up, though. That's for sure. I will certainly look to be more creative again. I can tell you that. That will be almost pretty much a certainty. And who knows what else is going to come? They have other things, I'm sure, on tap. But I mean, the dynamic weather. See, I didn't care about the dynamic weather as much as I do now. Now that I'm into the idea of the AI, that gets me now excited about the visual things, because now I'm looking at, okay, I'm in a situation now where I can actually run the railroad the way I want to run it, or run in somebody else's creation the way I would like to run. I mean, tonight, exactly what I did tonight, this was perfectly the way I like to run. I like to be dispatched if I'm going to run a main line. None of the traffic to me seemed just like eye candy. I was actually in operations. I mean, this was the perfect operation tonight. This was probably one of the better runs I've had in probably, I'd say this is probably one of the best AI runs I've run under, not AI, session runs that I've run underneath a dispatcher control in the last year. And I've run LA, I've run, you know, several times. It has nothing, you know, I mean, I give all the credit to dispatching as well, too, who did a great job. But to be able to just have that type of situation where I had to hold for 2 meets that timed out really well, and I was well prepared to hold as long as I did. And then that one just there, that was another one that where I had to pay attention to what I was doing and wait. Whoops, forget to come down to the grade now. Thought that was yellow for a minute. Oops. It's paying too close to the accelerometer.
I'm getting towards the end of the session now. As I said, like, we got interesting times ahead. I think it's we don't know when it's coming out or whatever exactly. So, will I be checking the Run8 Depot site every day? Probably not like I did before, but between version 1 and version 2, because you know, it'll be ready whenever it's ready. So, you know, that's... So I'm not that massively eager looking for it, but I am looking forward to it for sure. And there's still a lot we don't know what it's going to be, or, you know, how it's going to run. In theory, everything sounds good. I like the in theory part, the imagination, how I would, but I know there was some things between version 1 and version 2 that surprised me, but then there was some things that was a bit of a disappointment, I would say. Most of it was much positive than negative, but there was, like I said, the way that Spawn trains, that disappointed me, but the way AI handled was awesome, for you know what it does now. I mean, basically. Interesting. Yeah, I'm not available Wednesday anyways. This Wednesday coming up. So yeah, it's definitely good times indeed coming, I think. I think it's all looking good, so much more optimistic now than I was even as early as yesterday. So I'm liking it. I won't say I'm loving it. We'll see what happens. All depends how it turns out, but the way they usually outperform, I would say it's probably going to be a good thing. Alright, good roll by. And I am done. Okay, guys. Yeah, I'm not going to be available Wednesday, so I'll be on to the Northeast server with Scott probably on Thursday, actually, this week. Then from there, who knows, but there's certainly not much to rant about these days now. Not with that, and that simple little post, that's all it took. So that's enough to get, you know, the mindset. It wasn't about just eye candy this time coming around. It's going to be more than eye candy. It's going to be some interesting substance. And it may not all happen right away, but the direction that they're headed is what always concerned me the most, probably in the last full year, I would say. We had some reassurance last year of some things that were going on and some of the changes, and the LA route was certainly a pretty much plus for this year. You know, for the beginning of last year or whatever it came out, but after that, it really, we didn't know what was going to happen, and it's good to see. So I'm very pleased with it. I'm glad, you know, I would much rather talk more about the future and what's going to be happening down the road than I would be bitching about not knowing what's going to happen. So definitely from this end, it looks good, and you know, whatever they come up with, it's gonna be pretty good, because I think they're gonna be satisfying some key shortcomings. Do I want to see new regions? Absolutely. Do I want to see shorter routes? Absolutely. But the big thing here is that we're not going to be restricted, or I shouldn't say restricted. For the way I like to run right now, I get to run the way I wanted to run tonight on California once a week or maybe twice a week. Any other time, I don't get to run the way I want to run. I used to be able to do it in the past, but you know, now it's just it's different. It's just, you know, some things get old, some things never get old. That what we just did right there very seldom gets old. That part is something I enjoy doing, and it was actually quite enjoyable tonight, so it worked out pretty good. But when you do the same task, like say Barstow or whatever, and I used to run Barstow all the time, it got old actually pretty quick. So, you know, I could see that becoming old. I can see everything becoming old at some point, but I think that the variety that's going to be available and just the sure potential of a full-fledged operation is going to be very, very appealing to the way I like to run. And you know, like I said, I run 3 days nights a week. I couldn't run it. If I could run more, I may, but honestly, I wouldn't want to burn myself out, because even running on the Northeast server, I'm somewhat limited to what I can do. I mean, yeah, you hump, you dispatch. Dispatching's relatively boring compared to where I dispatch here, so that's why I can multitask. But would I want to do it more than twice a week? Probably not. And I've been like that for a while. I don't want to run more than 2-3 times a week anyways. But I can see that this is something that might want me to basically spend as much possible time that I can developing or running or doing something, which may include coming on a server if they're running trains and AI, like coming on a Southwest server and running the hump for a little while because AI trains are running, or the AI hump, or they have an AI hump available, and you can just basically trim or the bowl or however that's going to work, or even hustle the yard with the stuff going on isn't so bad. If you're hustling the yard and there's trains running by you, that's kind of cool. I would hustle the yard. And right now, if there's a task about hustling a yard, I know it has to be done, but I really don't want to hustle a yard. Nah, it's the lowest position for me to, you know. It's one of the more, you know, it's essential. You gotta do it. Everything has to be done, but just because everything has to be done doesn't mean I have to enjoy it. It's just like the real world. Okay, enough blabbing. It's 11:09, but definitely excited about what's coming. So, and it was very little. It's not too detailed yet, but that's okay. We'll see. But that's all for tonight. So I'll be back. Yeah, it's gonna be a couple nights with my son, and maybe I'll get a little bit done around the house here as well. So I'll be back in the Northeast on Scott's server on Thursday evening sometime. Not too sure what time, maybe 8 o'clock, I'm not sure yet, but 8 or 7 or something, but we'll figure that out. Anyways, have a good one, guys. We'll talk to you